Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
Attention, you're listening to the Todd Huff Radio Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk radio. Be advised that the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. Here's your conservative, but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Hey, welcome, my friends. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you for tuning in to Hour 1 of the Todd Huff Show. If you want to be part of the conversation, I invite you to email Todd at toddhuffshow.com, or you can text 317-210-2830. Just make sure you include, as always, those adoration and praise that is necessary, which is, I'll tell you, actually today, it might be 15 to 20% more than you might think necessary. But it is good to be here today. I'm kidding, but not really. It's good to be here today, my friends. I got a bunch of stuff in the stack of stuff. You know, as I've read these headlines and as I've thought about this today, and I got to tell you, there's stuff going on here behind the scenes that I'm not going to trouble you with. But there's a lot of distractions here in the studio, and as we're navigating some things here. But we don't do themes on this program. We do, what would you say we do? We talk about things, and sometimes that are in the news and so forth, and sometimes themes develop. And as I've thought about the theme, thought about the stories that are out there today, I think what's at the top of my list is this gratitude, excitement, hopefulness in what it means to have true leadership in the White House. And that is diametrically opposed to what is happening in cities run by Democrats. Now, I want to pause here for a moment. I want to pause here and spend a little bit of time here today. Actually, before I do that, I want you to think about something really quickly. I want you to think about your money. You know, you've worked hard for your money, but is that money working hard for what? Well, for you, number one, and is it working hard for what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means that they screen out companies that do not align with your faith and your values, and they'll help you create a plan that fits your goals and your purpose. And here's the best part. You can even find out right now if your investments currently stack up with or against your values. You can find out by going to 48financial.com/Todd. It's totally free to do this. See if your values are aligned, your investments are aligned with your values. 48financial.com/Todd to find out. That's 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, helping you align your money with your mission. All right. So, I want to spend a little bit of time today talking about the Democrat Party in general, the Democrat Party that some of your parents or grandparents would have known, and how that's drastically different from what we see today. I just want to kind of set the stage because I am not, hear me say this, and people who are new to the program, or I would say people who don't view politics the same way that I do, I am not a staunch Republican. I vote Republican almost all the time in spite of some of the things that the Republicans do. We're not really given an option. I did back in, I forget the year it was. I did vote for governor. It must have been in 2020. I voted for the Libertarian candidate here in our state. I voted Libertarian for governor. I did not vote for Eric Holcomb. I think Republicans, and look, I'm sure Eric Holcomb's a nice guy, whatever. I don't know. I think that Republicans like that in office. And by the way, Indiana has a lot of these guys. Indiana might be a red state, but they don't have a lot of principled conservatives. They have some, but they don't have a lot. And this actually, it can actually do more damage to the conservative brand to have Republicans that are weak-kneed or moderate or just not principled conservatives running the show. I voted for Donald Rainwater in 2020. He was a guest on this program. And he was the guy that I thought was best for the job. And so I voted for him. But most times I end up voting for Republicans because I don't really have a choice. The Democrat Party has abandoned sense and reason and morality. They have abandoned free market capitalism. They have abandoned what this nation was built upon. There was a time, I don't know how far back in time one has to go, you can figure that out, to say that there used to be two parties. Both of them loved this country. Both of them revered its founding. They just had slightly different, or sometimes dramatically different priorities and interests. One party thought that it was standing up for the little guy. Another party thought it was standing up for free markets in general and business owners and all of this. But we've lost that. Today's Democrat Party, and I'm speaking as one who was raised in a Democrat household in Indiana. Now, geographically, I'm in about the center of the state of Indiana. We're about, 20 or 30 miles outside of the city, the capital city of Indianapolis. Indianapolis was actually a city that was built to be a capital city. Some places, some states chose a capital city during the formation of their state. Oh, here's a city, let's make that our capital city. Indianapolis was actually chosen to be the capital city. One of the reasons was they made it in the middle of the state for some practical purposes. I'm about, like I said, 30 miles to the south and west of the city in a little town called Monrovia. We are in the final approach for people. If you've ever flown into Indianapolis and you approached from the west, you likely went over the town of Monrovia, or we're very close to it anyway. You could certainly see the town from the sky if you knew what you were looking for, and we could certainly see you if we were looking up, and of course the sky was clear. But that's where I am. If you go from Indianapolis south in particular, there's a group of people in Indiana, and I don't know, this is a phenomenon that I don't know where else this exists in the country, but I'm sure there's pockets of this. But Indianapolis, I should say south, southern Indiana, they are still largely, there's exceptions, I should say, to this, in places like Bloomington. Bloomington, Indiana is run by a bunch of radical lunatics, extreme leftists that are tied into, educated by, partnered with Indiana University, which is not far from here. That's the next county to our south. I'm on the northern edge. I can actually see Hendricks County from where we are in Monrovia. I can see it. We're on the northern edge of the county. The southern county, the county to our south is Monroe County. Anyway, so that's where Bloomington is. So if you if you don't include a city like Bloomington and you go to the southern part of Indiana, southern half of Indiana, especially as you get further south, closer to the river, down along the river, the Ohio River, you'll find that there are lots of conservative Democrats. These are folks who are pro-life. These are folks who are pro-Second Amendment. I have to say the Democrat Party has done a number on these folks because they've convinced these folks in southern Indiana that the Democrat Party is the party in favor of pro-life and the Second Amendment and free speech and things like that. And they've convinced these folks to vote for Democrats. Now, I understand in some cases, not many, but I understand in some cases why people in that part of the country, that part of the state, would vote Democrat because of what they hear. But you have to think in terms of what happens. You elect someone from southern Indiana who either convinces you or who may be legitimately what we used to call a blue dog Democrat, a Reagan Democrat, a conservative Democrat. And they say a lot of things that even I would agree with, maybe not a lot, but some things that I can say, listen, I can see why that person might be appealing to you, especially if you've been conditioned to hate Republicans and hate Trump and hate Bush and all this other stuff. And so, but that's a myth. And when these folks, that it's a party that doesn't exist, it's a charade, it's a shenanigan. They're basically what happens today. If you cast your ballot for a person like that, even if they're saying the right things, whatever, when they go to Washington, D.C., they caucus with the Democrats. What does that mean? That means that they get into a room and they strategically align themselves with other Democrats and independents who are caucusing with Democrats. This would be an independent like Bernie Sanders, a Democratic socialist. So your guy who's down here in southern Indiana, and maybe other pockets around the country as well, who are out here saying things that sound right, that seem to be reasonable and logical and so forth. She gets to Washington, D.C., and all of that goes out the window. Because why? Because they caucus with the Democrats. And the leaders that they elect to run, say, be House Speaker, for example, Hakeem Jeffries or Nancy Pelosi, for example, these folks are definitely to the left of these individuals. In fact, some of these folks become that they're voting for in positions of leadership become radical leftists. And they are aligned with the likes of AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. They are aligned with some of the most radical people in our nation's government today. And they elect leaders that are oftentimes or sometimes ideologically in line with those folks. If nothing else, they're ideologically willing to compromise with folks on that radical fringe. And the guy that you think you're voting for to represent your district in southern Indiana or wherever else this might exist around the country, states where there are still blue dog Democrats, your vote turns in, his vote, her vote turns into, and by extension your vote, turns into a vote for radical leftists. And this party has gone completely off the rails. I've shared in the recent Todd Talk, and I might have mentioned it on this program as well. I did mention it on this program as well, that the Democrats today, rank and file Democrats, half of them, 47% anyway, want a third party. Basically, 47% have realized that what I just told you is the case. And they can't vote for Republicans, but they also can't vote for Democrats. And I am telling you this, I am extending, if you're a Democrat today, if you're a blue dog Democrat, if you're someone like me who was raised in a Union Democrat home, if you were raised by teachers who voted Democrat because of the union and so forth, you and I have a lot in common. You were raised by someone, as I was, who in every conceivable way was a conservative, except for one. And this is one of the things that I find fascinating about how the psychology of politics works. You can be a conservative and agree with me on all sorts of issues. You can be in favor of the Second Amendment. You can be in favor of peace through strength. You can be in favor of free markets. You can be in favor of just name of the Second Amendment, free speech, freedom of religion, all the way down the list. You can be for all these things. The belief that there are only two genders, that God created man and woman to be married, that down the list, just all of these things, conservative Christian values and principles. And then suddenly we get to the one that says, I got to cast my vote now. And now my choice is some Republican who, by the way, may not agree with us, you and me, on some of those issues I just listed. They agree with us on more of them, or at least there are more pressures and checkpoints in place to make sure that their votes and actions align with those things. Not perfectly. I admit that. Not perfectly, but better than these extreme radical leftists. Better by a country mile, by many country miles. It's not even a close comparison. But yet someone who is a Democrat and, a union member might say, I've got to vote Democrat because I've got to think about my family and my job, and Republicans are trying to take it. That's the, misinformation that exists out there. Or someone might say, I'm pro-choice and I'm willing to abandon all these other things that I agree with Republicans and conservatives on because I believe that that's the single most important issue today. You know that I'm pro-life and I vehemently disagree with you. Science is not on your side. Truth and logic are not on your side. But my friends, are you willing to throw away all these other things? Is it, even if you believe that Republicans were trying to infringe upon the rights of women to choose what they do with their own bodies, even if you really believe that nonsense, what about all of the things that the left opposes when it comes to the freedoms that are listed in our Bill of Rights, the freedoms that we take sometimes for granted, unfortunately, in this great nation? What about all the opposition they have to the freedom of religion, to the freedom of press, to the freedom of speech, to the freedom to choose to protect yourself and your family with a firearm? What about those freedoms? Why are you not equally as upset about that? The reason would be because of the narrative. The reason would be because of the manipulation. The reason would be about who gets out there on the streets, gets more media coverage and attention, who is in cahoots with who, pushing what agenda forward, and suddenly the narrative is that Republicans oppose women's rights, when in reality, the party that is pro-choice about every other issue except terminating the life of an unborn child, is in fact the Republican Party. You want to have freedom of choice as to where you send your kid to school? Good luck doing that if you're a Democrat. I mean, this is, you want to be have the freedom of choice to have your daughter in high school sports only compete against girls instead of boys? Good luck doing that if the Democrats are running the show. I mean, this is unbelievable to me when you stop and list the things that the Democrat Party is in favor of or against, and you look at common sense, reason, logic, the founding of this nation, the way things ought to be, and the Democrats are routinely and consistently on the wrong side of the issues. And so that's the playing field today. You have Trump come in. He's secured the border in just a couple of months. He's begun deporting primarily criminal and violent illegal aliens, though anyone who's here illegally is technically potentially going to be deported if they're detained. And I want to mention this headline really quickly as I go through this. TheNationalPulse.com. ICE has detained a record-breaking number of illegals under Trump. Just going to read this quickly because I want to move on. Illegal immigration detention numbers in the United States have reached historic levels under President Donald Trump, with at least 56,000 migrants currently in custody. However, the federal government data suggests the number could be as high as 59,000, significantly exceeding the agency's capacity and surpassing previous records. This is one of the reasons why Trump is saying we need to pass the big, beautiful bill. We need to get more resources on the table so that we can do our job better. I know that the big, beautiful bill is not perfect, and there are some things that I wish weren't in there or were different or what have you. But we also have to come to the realization of where we are and move forward the best that we can here in some really, really important areas to regain control, to regain a sense of law and order in this great nation. Again, going back to the article, the administration has implemented aggressive enforcement tactics, including declaring an invasion by foreign gang members and invoking emergency powers to expedite deportations. The temporary protected status abused by the Biden government to admit over 800,000. Think about that. 800,000 immigrants from countries like Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela has been revoked, clearing the way for deportation of even more illegal immigrants. Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, has pushed for an increase in daily arrests, aiming for 3,000 per day. Federal resources, including law enforcement agencies like the FBI and DEA, have been directed to support immigration enforcement. Additionally, partnerships with local police departments have further bolstered these efforts. I talked about ICE's budgetary challenges, which this also talks about. It's over budget, its annual allocation, by $1 billion and could run out of funds in the coming months. So, but the point here is that everybody listening to my voice knows, that this responsibility by the federal government has been abdicated, has been ignored. They have not done their job. In fact, they've done quite the opposite. They've done quite the opposite for years and for decades, getting us to this problem, this point in time. People have lost their lives. Gangs have taken over areas. Drugs have run rampant. Human trafficking has increased, all in part because of this. It is an evil that has been allowed to impact in a negative way the citizens of this great nation. It has been stopped and it is being addressed. Everybody knows that this is exactly what needs to happen. It's in accordance with law, but yet there are people on the streets of cities who are opposing, which you can protest whatever. You can not like it, but they are directly interfering with ICE. And we even have an elected politician who is calling on the gangs. I kid you not. This is a Democrat, by the way. She is calling on the gangs to step in and to, I guess, help protect their turf in Los Angeles, preventing ICE from enforcing immigration law. So I'm going to take a timeout. When we get back, I want to play that soundbite. I got to get the bleep button ready. I will do that. You're going to sit tight, my friends. You're listening here to the home of conservative, not bitter talk. I'm your host, Todd Huff. Back here in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. By the way, here's a question for you as we start here the second segment of Hour 1. Do you know where your money goes after you spend it when you're out there in the marketplace, when you're buying from businesses? If the answer makes you cringe or hesitant or wonder if you are supporting leftist movements and causes and all this nonsense, maybe it's time to check out Freedom Marketplace. Freedom Marketplace is a platform designed to connect conservatives like you with businesses that share your values and your beliefs. Businesses that refuse to bow the knee to leftist causes and leftist candidates. They've made a pledge not to support such things, leftist causes or leftist candidates. It's free to use. There's no login required. It's all about keeping your dollars aligned with your principles. Visit freedommarketplace.net today, my friends. Check it out. That's one of the ways, by the way, you can help this program is by helping people who are making this program available to you. Freedommarketplace.net, liberty and business for all. All right, so there is a vice mayor of a city that's outside of Los Angeles. Looks like a little bit to the south and to the east, if I'm not mistaken here, when I've done my initial search. I don't know if you pronounce this city Cudahy. It's Cudahy. Cudahy. I don't know. But it's south and east of Los Angeles. My son just went out here a month or two ago. I don't know, a little bit ago, with his grandmother and what would you call his great aunt or something. Anyway, she lives out there, but not to the city specifically, but in that part of the country. So this vice mayor, her name is Cynthia Gonzalez, she takes to social media to call, I kid you not, we're talking here today about the difference between the political parties. I am not here to endorse and defend Republicans and to say that they're doing it perfectly and doing it right and all that sort of stuff. They are not. I'm a conservative. I'm happy to vote for the Republicans that advance, well, anyone, candidly, that advances conservative principles and values, who stands on the side of truth and the Constitution. I am vehemently opposed to anybody who's not in that group. And it's easy to see that while there are certainly some Republicans who are not pushing in the same direction I am, all Democrats at this particular point are pushing in the opposite direction. So that's why it becomes easy for me, and I hope it becomes easy for some of you as well to see this. We have to come to grips with the fact that most of the problems we faced have been caused politically. Not every problem in this world is caused by a politician. Some is caused by the fall of man. Some are created or caused by our actions and choices. Some are caused by the actions and choices of others and how they impact us. Life is complicated. It's not as black and white as I once thought that it was. But make no mistake about it, some of these issues are 100% the responsibility of government. And the one that we're talking about here in particular is illegal immigration, border security, and all of that. By the way, we have a census coming up. This was the subject of today's Todd Talk. We have a census coming up. Every 10 years, this country counts her citizens. We did this. The first one I really remember was 2000. I remember being on the horse farm, and that's when they had these long, you could get the long form. They were coming out in person if you didn't answer the census by mail back then. I don't think you could fill it out online back then. That was in the early days of the Wild West days of the internet, I guess. But I remember they would come to your door, and there would be long questionnaires, which upset some people. But the counts in the census, hear me say this, the counts in the U.S. census, because of executive orders by the likes of people like Joseph Robinette Bribery and the interpretation of courts and so forth, in spite of Trump's efforts to stop this, illegal aliens are counted in the number. Now, you could say maybe we want to count them but not put them in the number of our citizenship number, because the citizenship number, the general count number, determines how many House members each particular state gets. And we're counting people who aren't even here legally. Why are they being counted politically? They should not be. This is beyond common sense to me. So you have representation that is skewed because of illegal immigration. You have the allocation of tax dollars, which I'm not in defense of the way we fund things today. I'm not in favor of Washington, D.C. writing checks to people after collecting citizens' taxes, businesses' taxes, and then sending money back to states that these taxes came from in the first place. I'm not a fan of that system. But the way that money is allocated, the way that it works today, is in part going to be determined by the number of people who are counted. And so you have people that aren't supposed to be here who are counted in your area. You're going to get more of those funds directed back to you, breaking the purpose of the equation to begin with. And do you know, when you look at a state's electoral votes, the number of votes each state gets when they cast their vote for president of the United States, you take the number of House members each state has, and you add the 2 senators. That's how you get to the total. And so if your state has an extra House member because you're counting illegal aliens, well, guess what? You just stole an electoral vote from another state. I mean, this is crazy stuff. You want to talk about the real cost of immigration? You want to talk about impacting and influencing our elections and undermining our democracy? Here is Exhibit A, my friends. But you've got a member, a vice mayor of a city in California taking to social media. I just can't believe this. And she's calling on she's calling on gangs to defend their turf against ICE. Don't believe me? Listen to this.
But I want to know where all the cholos are at in Los Angeles. 18th Street, Florencia. Where's the leadership at? Because you guys are all about territory, and this is 18th Street, and this is Florencia. You guys tag everything up, claiming hood. And now that your hood's being invaded by the biggest gang there is, there ain't a peep out of you. It's everyone else who's not about the gang life that's out there protesting and speaking up. We're out there like fighting our turf, protecting our people. And like, where you at? Bien calladitos, todos los chulitos. I'm like, dude, they're running amok all up on your streets and in your city. And peep, when the big gang guns come in, nothing but like quiet, and we're out here, the regular ones that have never been jumped in, out here calling things out, trying to organize people, trying to do the thing. So don't be trying to claim no block, no nothing. If you're not showing up right now, trying to like help out and organize, I don't want to hear a peep out of you once they're gone, trying to claim that this is my block. This was not your block. You weren't even here helping out. So whoever's the leadership over there, just get your members in order.
Yeah. That's not parody. This is not a Saturday Night Live skit. She's quite literally calling on the leaders of gangs to get their crap together to oppose ICE. I can't. I just can't. This is so bizarre. This is what the Democrat Party has become. She's making an appeal to the gang members. I had a friend. I've shared this with you, a little bit about him. A friend that I met when I was a student. I went to Butler, but I spent a semester at American University in Washington, D.C. And my friend, his name was Howell. I love Howell. Howell, I didn't know much about some of the things he taught me. He is Chicano, which effectively, as I understand it, means he's first generation American from someone who immigrated to the country, Chicano. And so he taught me a lot of things. It's interesting. Howell was a conservative guy in a lot of ways. We came from 2 different worlds. He grew up in Compton, California, which is, of course, right there in the metro Los Angeles area, and actually not far from this place that this lunatic is calling on gang members to help, I guess, protect illegal aliens on the streets of Los Angeles from ICE. Anyway, but he came into, we met in Washington, D.C. at American University, and he actually came home with me over spring break, which was very interesting, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But this thinking, the Democrat Party and what they've become is absolutely reprehensible, illegal, immoral. You can't. The days of being able to vote Democrat, my friends, are long gone, and to do that with integrity. Got to take a break, my friends. Quick timeout. Welcome back, my friends. By the way, I should remind you that this program is brought to you in part, by another division of this program, the Todd Huff Show. It's called Red, White, and Brand. And so we help people that company, that division of this company, helps you put your logo on almost anything, whether it's apparel, whether it's screen printed shirts, whether it's embroidered polos and hats and jackets, nice brands. I mean, we've helped large companies in the past. When I started the other company, which we had it back from 2009, I sold it in 2019. We just had a period of time where we passed the non-compete portion of our agreement with who we sold the company to. And so I've relaunched this, but we used to do work when I had the other company with FedEx and Cook Medical. If you're in Indiana, we did a lot of stuff with them. We did some stuff for the NCAA. And a lot of small businesses as well, but we're here to help anything that you need your logo on, from a promotional product to apparel to drinkware to something that you would give out at a job fair or a community event. If you need trade show graphics, signage, you name it, Red, White, and Brand is here to help. You can go and shop the website yourself, redwhiteandbrand.com. Promo code Todd's going to save you 10%, and you'll get free shipping on online orders. Or you can reach out to us through there, and our team will help you put some stuff together. There's a lot of stuff out there, so that might be the easier route. redwhiteandbrand.com, promo code Todd. All right. So let's, before the break, I was talking about my buddy Howell, who, by the way, we did have some texting back and forth during the NBA playoffs. He's a Lakers fan. I'm a Pacers fan. And for the first time in forever, he and I met in 99. So that was a year before the Pacers and the Lakers met in the finals. And of course, my Pacers came out on the losing end of that. So he's had bragging rights for a quarter of a century. But I took advantage of this. I would text him on occasion and say, hey, Howell, what time do the Lakers play tonight? The Pacers play at 8. That sort of thing. But anyway, so he and I met in Washington, D.C. I learned some things. And one of the things I learned was something she alluded to, this lunatic vice mayor in the Los Angeles area. Not of Los Angeles, but Metro Los Angeles. She said, you're out there. She's appealing to the gang members, remember? She's appealing to them. Why don't you do something? Why don't you stand up and defend your block, your streets? I hear all this. I hear that this gang's in charge of this area. Why don't you stand up and prove it? Don't let ICE come in there and take advantage to take control of your block, your street. Who's representing? Where are you? Why don't you stand up and fight? Why is it the regular people? That's what she's saying. It's unbelievable that a sitting mayor of Los Angeles, well, she's not of Los Angeles, this Cudahy, however you say it, Cudahy, I don't know, outside of Los Angeles. How can she say this? This is insanity. This is unbelievable, to where they're quite literally, the Democrats are comfortable going to social media and basically saying we are allied with gangs in Los Angeles, and we're appealing to them to stop the enforcement of federal law. Preposterous. But she mentions here, you tag this and that. I learned from Howell. We talked about this. If you ever see the fancy looking graffiti, this is a flyover state, heartland guys' interpretation of tagging. There are in Los Angeles and other large cities, territory, reputation, and all that. You've got a lot of people in it could be a big area, but when you think about the number of people per square mile, it's a pretty dense area. And so there's fighting for turf, and there's fighting for recognition, and who's the baddest at this, the toughest at that, who runs this and that, all that kind of stuff. And so some of these folks have become very talented graffiti artists. And I got to tell you, when it's well done, some of this stuff is impressive art people doing with the spray can. Now, where my problem lies, and Howell was talking to me about this, talking about people tagging this and that and tagging trains, and he could identify. He knew some of the artists based upon what it looked like. And I said, Howell, that's all well and good, but you don't have the right to spray paint someone else's property. And I don't think Howell, and again, he came here over spring break. He had a lot of fun, by the way. Now, those of you who live here, depending upon your sense of humor, you may or may not think that. But Joel, who's from Compton, I remember he came out here to the night skies. And listen, we don't live in the dark sky areas, but it gets dark here. Not like it does in, South in West Texas or something like that. But some of these national parks, Big Bend, it doesn't get that kind of dark here. But it gets pretty dark. And Joel said, "Oh man, Todd, who turned off all the lights?" I remember that and after going there for his wedding and realizing even at night you could see a couple of stars, but that's about it because of the light pollution or whatever you want to say. But Joel came here and he put on some overalls. I took him to, there's an area here where the creek, if there's rain, there's not a culvert or something under the road. The water will actually wash over the road. There's actually a couple places like that near me. He thought this was great. He grabbed a pitchfork. He put on some overalls. He put on some of those hillbilly teeth and has pictures. There's picture evidence of this. But we have I don't want to say diametrically, but just vastly different upbringings and understandings. But we came to the same realization. And there's a lot of people there that understand that this immigration law has to be enforced, even though there's leaders like this. But I got to go, SDG.